Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to our first virtual business information session. My name is Margaret McGee. I'm the Business Services Manager with the Office of Economic Development. Today, we will begin a series of 3 business information sessions, and I'll show you the flyer here. Well, I'll show you the flyer at the end since Julian has his presentation up already. So we'll begin today with introduction to city business. Tuesday, May 25th, it will be procurement opportunities, and Thursday, May 27th, we'll have payments. All sessions will be virtual and starting at 1:30. Sorry. Our speakers will include representatives from the Office of Procurement, Bureau of Purchasing, Bureau of Accounting, and the Office of Supply Diversity. We have 3 parts to our presentation today. Part 1, Cities Purchasing Activities, presented by Mr. Julian Mayer, Chief Procurement Officer and Head of the Bureau of Purchasing. Part 2, registrations with Supplier Portal, presented by Ms. Tanika West, Assistant Purchasing Agent with the Bureau of Purchasing. Part 3, DBE certification, presented by Mr. Matthew Cullinan. He's the Compliance Officer with Supply Diversity. Please make sure to make note of all your questions and hold them to the end where we have Q&A. Now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Julian.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Margaret. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Julien Meyer. I'm here today to present to you introduction to city business. And on your screen, you have the presentation, which will be a copy will be made available as well on the city website. So let's get started. So the content of this presentation, we're going to have some preliminary notes. We're going to go over a little bit of the agenda and the speakers. Part 1 would be cities purchasing activities. Part 2, the registration and supplier portal. And part 3, the DBE certification. And at the end of this presentation, we'll have a conclusion and a question and answer, as Ms. Margaret mentioned. Regarding the preliminary notes, I would like to take a moment to introduce the 2 departments who are involved in this presentation. So first, the Bureau of Purchasing, which is a bureau that serves as the central authority for all city department, boards and commissions, procurement and purchasing needs. Our mission is to serve the public by modernizing procurement and contracting procedures, implementing a fair and transparent procurement process while engaging local businesses, and maximizing purchasing value by applying the best procurement practice. The other office involved in this presentation are colleagues from the Office of Supply Diversity. The Office of Supply Diversity oversees certification, compliance, outreach, training, and capacity building for the city's Equal Business Opportunity Program. The city's Equal Business Opportunity Program is designed to mitigate the effects of past and present social disadvantage, economic disadvantage, and discrimination by increasing the utilization of certified DBEs in the procurement of goods and services by the City of New Orleans. I'm going to go over the agenda and the speakers quickly, as Ms. Margaret mentioned already. Part 1, I will be introducing that section regarding the city's purchasing activities. After me, we'll talk about the registration with the supplier portal with the help of Ms. Tanika West. And we'll conclude our presentation with a DB certification presented by Matthew. So let's go to part 1, the city's purchasing activities. What I would like to do in this presentation is answer some basic questions for you. One is, who purchases goods and services? Next one, what do they buy? How do they buy those goods and services? When do they buy, and where do they buy them? So let's start with the first question, who buys? So the city has over 30 plus departments, boards, and commissions. Listed on this slide a couple of examples of what we mean by departments. The New Orleans Police Department, the Fire Department, Public Works, Sanitation, Parks and Parkways are some examples of the departments that we assist with the procurement and purchasing activities. Another example of a board is the New Orleans Aviation Board, we call also the airport. We assist the board with the solicitation that they place through our supplier portal. An example of a commission, referring to the New Orleans Recreation Development Commission, that we also call NORDC. So those are some of the examples of those department, boards, and commission that we assist with their procurement and purchasing activities. I just want to mention that every now and then we get questions regarding procurement of other agencies, and those agencies are not covered by our rules as well as by our services. So for example, we do not solicit bids and RFPs and goods and services for the Regional Transportation Authority, the RTA. We do not assist the Sewage Water Board or NORA. They have their own procurement and purchasing department that assists them in their purchases for goods and services. So where do you find those departments, board, and commission? On this slides, I'm showing you the landing page of the City of New Orleans webpage. If you go to www.nola.gov, this will lead you to the landing page of the City of New Orleans. And on the menu, you will see the word departments. If you click on departments, it will bring you the list of all the agencies that have information for that website. Now, you may find some information about the RTA, Sewage Water Board, and NORA, but like I said, they're not city agencies that we assist, but they're still listed with their contact information. But you will find the contact information for police, for fire, for parks and parkways, NORDC, or the board, as I mentioned. This is a way to get to know and find the contact information for those departments. So what do they buy, those departments, boards, and commission? On the citywide side, they obviously all need office supplies, computers, copiers, uniforms, I've added business cards, building repairs, copy paper, janitorial services, or vehicles repairs. Those are the type of goods and services that pretty much all departments need to purchase. What means by majority? A majority of departments may need security services, or for example, maintenance supplies. Maintenance supplies, not all departments have maintenance section. For example, NORDC as a maintenance unit, the airport as a maintenance unit, fire and NOPD have maintenance units. But my office purchasing, we do not have one. So we don't buy those supplies. Security services apply to city facilities, city buildings. Not all of them benefit from a contract for security services because they may not need that, or they have their own contract for that. A minority of departments need a few specific supplies. So medical supplies or ammunition. Obviously, medical supplies are primarily needed for EMS, the Emergency Medical Service Department, the Fire Department, NOPD. But for example, again, purchasing our office does not need medical supplies. We don't purchase them. Ammunition is an obvious example, which is primarily for NOPD, obviously, but not everybody needs those type of goods. And then rarely, we find that some departments purchase some goods and services very specific to the activity. So example here is airplane parts. That's primarily a purchase done by the mosquito control, since they have an airplane that they use to spray herbicide in the city. And so they maintain the airplane that they use, and they're pretty much the only one who have an airplane and need those parts. Radiation detection equipment. This is a very specific type of equipment that the fire department needs for their firefighters. Obviously, not all departments departments need that. This is very specific to their activity. I wanted to also continue that conversation of what do they buy by giving you some additional distinction. So for material and supplies, pretty much all departments, boards, and commission need to buy material and supplies. Like I said, it may depend on what they need, but they all buy material and supplies. So I mean, obviously don't need to purchase medical supplies for purchasing, but we do need office supplies. The other type is services. So on this slide, I show you a distinction between professional versus non-professional. And I give you two examples. So a professional service is a service that's being categorized that way due to the special skill set of the profession of the independent contractor. So in this case, I'll give you an example of finance when the Department of Finance wishing to hire a consultant. But the typical professional service providers that we are referring to are lawyers, architects, engineers. Those type of professional services are pretty much covered under that category. The non-professional services is that bucket in which whichever is not a professional services will be considered non-professional services. So vehicle repairs is an example, which are services that the Equipment Maintenance Division, EMD, is responsible to solicit via procurement methods to repair the city vehicles. And then the final category is public works and repairs. I give you some examples of the department involved with these purchases. Capital Project Administration is obviously responsible for the construction of new buildings. Public Works is handling the repairs of the road, the streets. Property Management is overseeing the repairs of the city facilities. North Sea handles all the recreational centers and playground that's under their oversight. And then another example is the New Orleans Public Library involved in repairing the branches that they have. Now, how do they buy? So it starts with what is their budget, and then how this budget interacts with dollar thresholds, because those two elements will dictate the methods of procurement. I'm not going to go too much in details on this slide, just want to give you some very brief introduction on it, because we will address in more detail those procurement method on Tuesday. So I invite you to sign up for Tuesday presentation where we're going to talk about bidding opportunities. But for material and supplies and non-professional services, departments have delegated purchase authority under $1,000. Invitation to quote is the method that they need to use to buy some material supplies that for budget or cost that could be between $1,000 up to $20,000. But if the purchase has a budget of $20,000 or more, they need to do a formal invitation to bid. For professional services, they could go through an informal process if the budget or their cost is under $15,000. If it's above that threshold of $15,000, they need to go through a full formal procurement, which could take shape of a request for proposal or request for qualification. And finally, for public works and repairs, they either will have to do an informal invitation to bid if it's under $150,000, but if the cost or the estimate is above that amount, they have to do a formal invitation to bid. To continue on how do they buy, I just wanted to show you on this slide, I took a screenshot of open events that are currently on the supplier portal to show you exactly how the information that I provide to you translate, practically speaking. What you're seeing in front of you is a screenshot of the list of events that our Office of Purchasing posted, released on the supplier portal. So the event is a solicitation. And open events mean that this is an active, ongoing solicitation that bidders, such as you, suppliers and respondents can look and consider to bid on. So for ones that are not in front of their computer and can't see it on the phone, I'm just going to describe to you. For example, the first one is a request for proposal for emergency transportation passenger bus service. This is for hurricane season. We have an invitation to bid entitled Asphaltic Concrete Mixture. And this one is for the Department of Public Works. If I go down, I will find what we call an ITQ, which is an invitation to quote for heating air system service. That's an informal solicitation that Parks and Parkways has asked us to put on the supplier portal. We'll do another one, an invitation to quote for the airport for customized socks and packaging. That's for the airport, goes by the acronym of NOAB, the New Orleans Aviation Board. And they have submitted the paperwork to purchasing to post and release this event on the supplier portal. So this is a good example of how do they buy. They use the supplier portal and those events to communicate to the business community their needs and what they're looking for. When do they buy? So first, it depends. It could be a one-time purchase. For example, I may need to buy business cards as I'm hiring a new employee, and I may not need that anymore just this year. I may have just one new employee. I need to buy them business card for that person. Could be a repetitive purchase. I may decide to do an informal bid for business cards because I envision to hire several employees in the course of the year. They will have a need for business cards, and I'm going to plan that it's going to cost me a certain amount, which may trigger the fact that I need to do an invitation to quote because it's going to be above $1,000 but less than 20. And I need some room because I may not know yet how many I'm going to need, but I need at least a price to purchase those business cards in the future. So it could be as needed. It could be seasonal. For example, Parks and Parkways may have different needs depending on the season, where they have to cut trees, cut grass, trim trees. That could be the season can lead them to decide when they need to purchase those goods and services. Could be for a specific event. Obviously, Mardi Gras is a primary example that comes to mind, where the city may have to hire some consultant or photographers or entity to repair some of the bleachers, help the city getting ready for the event, and that's the contract may be made during that time. So Mardi Gras being at the beginning of the year, we're talking about contract and procurement method being implemented during the winter that precedes Mardi Gras. They also need to buy goods and services when they used to have a contract and that contract expired. So the city, typically when procuring contracts last for between 1 year to up to a total of 5 years. We have annual renewals for contracts. We'll touch on that next Tuesday as well on purchase order and contracts. But if a department has hired a consultant, the contract was for 5 years, and at the end of the 5 years, we don't have more extension. That's where they need to plan to do another potential procurement to hire a new service provider. Could be an emergency. Obviously, with the hurricane season coming up, emergency can come up during an event, but it can also happen outside of the hurricane season when something breaks down and the city may not have the time to go through a formal procurement. They have the ability to do an emergency procurement, but obviously you don't know what's going to happen, but that's a time where they can purchase goods and services. Our last item on the slide is something that our office is going to work actively on providing to suppliers is what we call a procurement outlook, is helping departments as well as suppliers finding out what are the expected purchase of goods and services for departments so that it can help you suppliers prepare for it, gearing up for the procurement, but also have the departments kind of planning ahead and have an ability to get what they need on time. An example that I didn't put here of a procurement outlook is that if you involve in road work, road street, Department of Public Works has a specific web page where they post all the projects that have been awarded, projects that have been completed, but also upcoming projects. So if you are involved in this area, I encourage you to go to the Department of Public Works webpage and looking at road work. There's a specific webpage that could lead you to seeing all the projects that are coming up. Where do those departments, board, and commission buy goods and services? Well, they obviously can do online research with the ability of finding out prices and goods and services, vendors everywhere on the web. That is a tool that they use, obviously, to locate potentially a quote, a vendor that could follow up with calls and emails to those vendors to find out more, to get more information. But obviously, the most common way for them to find the goods and services they need to buy is to create an event on the supplier portal, such as I mentioned before, an invitation to quote, an invitation to bid, a request for proposal. That's how they also promote their needs for goods and services. And finally, this is new this year, but we are creating a supply directory. So all suppliers that are registered in BRAS, in the supply portal, are contacted to provide additional information about what kind of industry they are in and what type of services that they offer. And with that information, we're building a supply directory that we will distribute to all our departments, board, and commission, so they get to know who is registered in the portal and what they do, not just like the name of it and a contact, but really what type of goods and services they can provide. So this is how we take advantage of the supply portal and suppliers being registered. How do I find out more? So you can obviously contact the department. Again, if you are trying to find the departments that you wish to contact, go back to www.nola.gov and click on departments. Once you find the department, let's say police, you click on it, you'll find the contact information. You can also contact the Bureau of Purchasing on our webpage about regarding in the menu, you will see a tab called About Us. We have the name of, obviously you'll find my name, my second in command, Kai Wells, Ms. Tanika West is on the website as well, but all the different buyers involved in assisting departments, you can find their contact information and reach out to them so they can tell you if there's an event that's pending that could be in connection with what goods and services you provide, or they can give you also an idea if something is coming up. They can also put you in touch with the department if you need to talk to somebody about coming solicitation. For formal solicitations such as invitation to bid or request for proposal, request for qualification, you can check the advocate. That's where the city advertise all those formal solicitation. So we typically advertise on Wednesdays and Fridays of the week. That's where you will see a basic summary of what the procurement is for, some dates, and also some instructions on how to get to the solicitation. You can also go and search current and past contracts on the purchasing website. There's a feature that allows you to search contracts, and if you know a department, if you know a vendor, you can search that way to locate contracts that have been signed by the city, and you can see, for example, who has been hired, and you can use that information to contact them if you want to offer your services to the prime. You can also find out more about what the contract is about and when it's going to expire, so you can be ready potentially to submit your own proposal as a prime. Another site where the city has been posting some of the solicitation is the Office of State Procurement. We started to do that this year, especially to promote our solicitation that we post for departments to expand our reach Obviously, encourage you highly, whether you register or not, to monitor the open events on the Supplier portal. It does require to go on a regular basis. But as I said before, working on developing a procurement outlook that could help you getting ready for an upcoming solicitation without having to check every week. But is every week the list of events can change. It really depends on demands from our departments. And finally, obviously, another good way to find out more is to register in the Supplier portal. We're going to go through this part in the following section called Registration with the Supplier portal, part 2. Let's want to make sure that I answer some of the questions through this registration phase. So what is BRAS? What are the features of the Supplier portal? How do I register? Why commodity codes are important? And how are BRAS and DBE connected? So first off, what is BRAS? BRAS stands for Budget, Requisition, and Accounting Services System. This is a new financial platform that the city launched in June 2019. Was intended to replace the 4 and 5 legacy financial system that the city has used for many years. And we had the chance to get rid of those platforms to have now just one, where all requisition, procurement, payment, budgeting, contracting or features of our process are all combined together into one platform where we can all see the connection between all of them. This is a new platform for supplier management, for bidding opportunities, purchase order and contract, invoice submission, and payment release. That's how we are combining all those different features into that one system. And then the Supplier portal is the external interface of BRAS with you, suppliers, individuals, and entities who wish to do business with the city. What are the features of the Supplier portal? Well, automated event addendum notification. So once you register in the portal and you've selected a commodity code and the city releases an event that is connected to the commodity code that you chose, you will receive notification via email that's generated by the system to tell you the city is making a change to that event. And so it will inform you of that, which will direct you to go then to the portal to see what exactly is happening with that event. What was modified, what was changed? Maybe it was canceled. Maybe we added some information. It's free and quick enrollment and 24/7 access. There's no cost involved. For the enrollment, you're going to see pretty soon with Ms. West that it doesn't take that much time. And you can access every day. The system is in the cloud. It's not linked to a system that we have in a city building. So it's available at all times. Self-enrollment and account maintenance. It's your account. You're responsible for it. You maintain it the way you want it. You can make the change you want. We don't have any control over this. This is your account. Makes your company visible to city departments, and that connects to the directory that I was mentioning before. We are planning on using information, your registration, to develop this directory to be able to help departments knowing who are our suppliers, who is registered with us, that I need to know, and eventually what they do. So if I have a need, if I have a question, we can know what pool of suppliers we have out there. Allows suppliers to submit their response online instead of submitting a paper. This obviously has been an important feature for the city with the pandemic, as we were unable to allow bidders and respondents to come to our office, because typically when you respond to an event, and especially a formal event like a bid, an invitation to bid, a request for proposal, prior to pandemic, you had the option to stop by our office on the 4th floor and to submit your proposal. But the pandemic changed the game, obviously, in many ways, and we had to use that feature of BRAS that we intended all along to do it, and it came at the time that happened to be very useful to us, which is and useful to you as well, for your own protection, to be able to submit your response online instead of having to drop a physical envelope or document to our office. Finally, this is required for an award to an event. All those events, those formal solicitation that we post have to be awarded in the system that's giving us the ability to check the status of an event and follow it through until we issue a purchase order or contract. But it's also required for payment. If you do business with the city, especially if you provide goods and services, to be paid, you have to be registered in the supplier portal so that we can assign what we call a vendor account number to your registration to be able to pay you after you have received a purchase order or contract. So now, how do I register? Well, we're going to see that in a second with the help of Mrs. West, who's going to register in the supplier portal. So I'm going to leave my screen and let her take over. Hi, Tanika.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, thank you, Julian. I am going to share my screen. And as Julian was saying, I am Tanika West. I am the Assistant Purchasing Agent with the Bureau of Purchasing. And my goal is to extend services, support to the business community with registration and navigation of the BRAS portal. The city's landing page, as Julian showed in the slide, NOLA.gov, is where all our business stakeholders would query to get to the BRAS page. It's NOLA.gov.com. There is www.nola.gov. And at the bottom right of the screen, you will see a link that'll take you to the BRAS Supplier portal. It's our landing page with all of our how-to guides. And from that page, there at the top right corner, there will be an icon of a gray man. And if you would hit that drop box, you would be asked to either sign into your profile if you have an existing profile, or you can complete a BRAS registration by just clicking the word register. And I have already clicked on register, in which I have entered some data in the fields. And what I ask all the suppliers to do is pay close attention to the red stars that are by each of the fields, because those are required. And if you would like to move forward in the BRAS system, please complete all of those required fields. So of course, the first field is your username. You create your username, something that you would remember. Also the password. The password is critical when creating in BRAS. The system recognizes upper and lower case entries, special characters, and numbers. It should always be 8 or more characters in that field. As you continue to put information about your company, this is just a quick snapshot, an electronic resume of your company for us to use when sending out notifications. So of course, I've entered my name, the telephone number. If you have a fax number, of course, there is a feature where only numeric entries are allowed in these fields. So there are no dashes for phone numbers, fax numbers, or mobile numbers. Of course, you'll enter your email address and your company name. And there is not a red star by tax ID type, but this entry for identifying your company is required. And if you hit the little magnifier in this field, you will notice that there are 3 options to select. The EIN entry. If you're a sole proprietor, you will enter your social security number. For this sake of this presentation, I'm hitting other, and I would just enter generic 9-digit numbers in this area and move on to the mailing address. There is entries for VAT registration. Those are for our vendors who have international companies, And if any of the vendors or suppliers, as they're entering their registration, have any questions, we ask that you all email procurement.brass@nola.gov, just because this information may be new to you all and you have questions and you get stalled in any way, please reach out to our office and we will reply to each of our emails received. As we move on, the mailing address, of course, there is an additional magnifier where you have to select the country of your business. And once the country is selected, the other fields will display to put the address of your business entity. We ask that if you guys have suites or floors, include that information in the address field. Also, if your remit address is different from your mailing address, there is an entry at the bottom of the mailing address where you can check if the remit address is the same as your mailing, or you can leave it unchecked. Checking the remittance is the same. You would just add the Duns and Bradstreet information, your business type, if you're a DBA, and also include your website. If you was to leave it unchecked, you will be asked again to enter the country of the remittance. And once selected, additional fields would drop down to add the remittance information. But for here, in this presentation, I won't enter a remit address. And of course, these entries of Duns and Bradstreet, business type, these are all, of course, responsibilities of the supplier. You guys would know if your company is an LLC, a sole proprietorship, it's not for profit. Those are the selections that you would see displayed in the box. And if I can scroll back up, I just named my company NOLA Global, but if I was to enter LLC, none of the entries in the business type would apply to me. So of course, that is specific to your business. We also have some terms and conditions. We ask that all suppliers, before completing the registration, read over the terms, understand the liability and acceptance of our conditions when doing business with the city. And of course, it has a red star. This entry is required. So upon completing the first page, which is the first registration tab on the left, you can click next at the bottom right corner, and you would get to the bank information tab. Okay, I got an error message. The tax ID that I selected has been used. So I'm just adding the one. Of course, this is a test registration. All right, once the banking information tab loads, there is fields available where the supplier can enter their routing number, their bank name, their bank account number, and of course, bank account type. If we click on the magnifier, a list of banks would display. In the bottom right corner of this window, it'll take you to other banks that we have preloaded into the registration portal for our suppliers to choose. If your bank is not listed here, we just ask that you all enter your routing number and your bank name as it appears on your financial information. So I'm just selecting the first entry, which is the Federal Reserve Bank. I put in a bank account number, and of course, from the drop box, you choose what bank account type you want. And for my entry in this test environment will be checking. The bottom piece of this window, bank information for location, that is specific to our suppliers who have multiple locations to their primary company name. So those are filled out according to the status of your business. So once the banking information tab is complete, you all will click next. and the diversity codes tab is going to load. Let's see. I am kicked out. I apologize. I think something's going on with the system. Let's see if I can. All right, we're back loaded. All right, the next tab is the diversity codes tab. And with this screen, the company can enter the type of code they have completed with possibly any of our certifying agencies that is within our Louisiana area. And the vendor would just go to the top left corner, click on the create option. And there is a diversity code with a red star, which is required if you are going to make an entry here. And we would click on the magnifier and a list of diversity codes would display. Of course, each supplier would choose the diversity code that pertains to their company. I'll select the first one, which is small business. The effective date, expiration date, of course, any attachments that supports this diversity code can be entered in these fields. There are no red stars from those fields. It's not required, but it is recommended that the vendor completes those tabs, especially if you have a respected code and certification with one of our agencies. You will click OK once you select your code, and this code would automatically populate under your profile. You can always go back to add codes by selecting create again, hitting the magnifier, selecting the respective diversity code, clicking OK, and that second code would again populate on the profile. So once the diversity codes tab is complete, the supplier is to click next. And then we have a set of questions. This questions tab is 2 simple questions. Are you a 1099 supplier vendor? Number 2, are you a certified DBE? Those questions are to be answered if the supplier is prepared to upload W-9 information and prepared to upload their DBE certification. The 1099, of course, that is expected for our suppliers. If you want to do business with the city, I ask that you reach out to your tax preparer for the answer to this question, whether or not yes or no. And if yes, of course, you are required at the time of registration to upload a document. If you don't have the document prepared, of course, you can continue with the registration by clicking no on each question. And of course, once the registration is complete, you can return to the profile to make those necessary updates. So if I've answered no to both of the questions because I don't have any information to upload, and of course, this is a test registration. A very important tab for registration is the commodity codes. The commodity codes, and Julian will revisit the commodity codes option. This is just to determine what discipline is your focus for your company's description. And you would go to the top left corner, select the commodity codes tab. And we have preloaded commodity codes listed in this window. And what I recommend to suppliers, if you are, for example, a janitorial company, you would just put a keyword discipline of your company business entity. And if you click on the search option, all words associated with janitorial would display, and you are to look through the list and determine which codes pertain to you. There's not a limit on commodity codes, so we ask that our suppliers are very expand their searches so that you will receive notifications of future opportunities. enter as many commodity codes as you see fit. And hopefully you can perform those services and provide them to the city. So I'm just going to select the commodity code 485, which also includes any of the subcategories that's under the 485 janitorial supplies general line. And you would just select the attach option. And once the codes disappear, you would hit close. And the commodity code, of course, would generate on your profile. So anytime there's a notification that is sent out to our business community and you have selected a certain number identifying your discipline, it should be listed here and you'll receive that automated message from our buyers and our procurement office. Okay, we're going next. Our last tab is the proxy notifications. Now this tab is for companies who have additional persons who should receive the notifications of certain solicitations. So in the top left corner, you would hit the create button, and this would be for persons who have their project managers or their estimators who should receive these notifications. Those persons can be added as proxies to receive notifications. And in this instance, I'll take Julian. And this person, once designated, will receive notifications. There's a drop box where your users or your proxies can, as the primary creator of this profile, you would have all the privileges to add proxies and additional users to have access to the system. And of course, we will save this information for the proxy, which is next to the create button in the top left corner. And if those tabs are complete, you would hit next. And you will receive a congratulatory message that the registration status is complete. Each registration as completed auto-generates a supplier number. This supplier profile is 6137. That number is tied to the registration. So each time that you log into the profile, as it's completed, you'll see a landing page with your supplier number listed, receive the notifications to the supplier number, and use this supplier information to respond to events. Upon receiving any type of contractual agreement or purchase order from the city, a second number is generated, and we call those vendor numbers. So those vendor numbers are generated once a transaction has been approved by the city. So for now, everyone receives a supplier number with their registration. And again, this process takes about 5 to 7 minutes. But if anyone has any questions about the registration process, any of the tabs, of course, they can reach out to our team via email procurement.brass@nola.gov. And Julian, if you wanted me to add anything to these features, or I'll stop sharing and answer any questions if possible, or just wait to the end. But that is the process of our BRASS registration and completing that portal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danica. I'm going to continue our presentation, and we'll answer any of your questions at the end of the presentation about the registration in particular. So let me come back to the presentation, as I want to emphasize the conversation about the community codes. So why are community codes important? So the city uses committee codes that have been created by the National Institute of Governmental Purchasing, which goes by the acronym of NIGP. I know the state of Louisiana use a different type as well, but those are pretty much similar in the sense that they help an entity such as a city, but any kind of also private companies, to understand and to track the type of suppliers that they have in the system, to understand how the entity buys services and goods per type, to be able to identify whether we have a strong, very vibrant business community for a specific item or good or services, or whether maybe we're lacking some suppliers for another type of service or goods, and that could help us understanding what we need to do to promote the development of new businesses in that area, especially if it's the type of good or services that the city needs on a regular basis. We may not have enough suppliers to provide competition, to provide best pricing or best service. And so we're going to use those community codes to track that information and help us understand where we are at the city. For you as a supplier, it's critical to have it, to choose it when you register, or even if you're already registered but you haven't done that, I highly recommend that you go back in your account and select it, because as I said earlier, and this is on the slide here, when the City of New Orleans, the Bureau of Purchasing, is releasing an event to the supply community to say, parks and parkways need supplies, to be able to promote that event to suppliers, the buyer, somebody from my staff, will have to choose and select a commodity code that is the one that reflects what we're trying to buy. And when the buyers select that commodity code, it populates in our system, on our end, the list of all the suppliers that have chosen that commodity code. And because we obviously ask you for your email address, when the event, when that invitation to quote to buy supplies is released by the buyer, and the system is going to send you an email notification. It's auto-generated, but it tells you the city has created an event and give you the number of that event and tell you, check the supplier portal because the city has released an event for a commodity code that you chose. So that's a feature of BRAS that you should pay close attention, make sure you've done that, because if you don't choose a commodity code, if you've not chosen one at all, then you won't get any notification that relates to the commodity codes that we choose for publication. And some events, the example that I use is an invitation to quote, it's an informal event, so we only release it on the supply portal. We do not advertise in the advocate. But if the city does a bid for office supplies citywide, which most likely is going to cost us more than $20,000, we would have to do an advertisement through the advocate, in addition to using the commodity code to notify internally the suppliers. But commodity codes are really critical for you to choose. But we understand as well that it could be new to you, or either you're not familiar with those codes. Like I said, the state of Louisiana use different ones. If it's your first time registering in a supply portal, you may not have never dealt with commodity codes. So this is why, and that's the last bullet on this slide, we're going to post on our website, the purchasing website, a commodity code book, which is basically a list of all the codes that we're using in our system that can help you find out, which one belongs to you. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly what you do, but it should be close to your activity, and it could be many. It doesn't have just to be one. It could be many codes that are in connection to your business, or you wish to know more, whether there are other opportunities for other type of articles, and that you're not sure if you want to get in that business or not. But that book will be on the website of the Bureau of Purchasing. And at the end of the book, you'll have a link to a crosswalk. I know some of your business have, obviously for registration purposes, use the NAICS codification. And there's a link to another jurisdiction. I think it's San Antonio. The city of San Antonio has a crosswalk to help you understand what NIGP committee code might be connected to the NICS code that you use to create your company. But this is really a critical piece of your registration. I insist on that one because, again, it's for you to get notification of events that are linked to the code that you chose. Obviously, every other step is important in the registration, but this business information session is to help you finding the opportunities, and community code, selection of community code is critical for that. Now, how are BRAS and DBE connected? Well, as you've seen during the registration, we ask you if you're DBE certified, and as Tanika showed you, we've listed several of the most common certification that we know of that we give you access to register, to at least notify us in the system that you belong to a diversity code. That's a critical piece because with this, it'll help us, and when I say us, the city, but particularly our office, as well as colleagues from Supply Diversity, to find out who is registered with us. You may not be DB certified with our local office. You may be certified from another state. We need to know that so we can see how we can get you certified here as well. It helps us also in our system on our side, we can do search by community code by diversity to see how many certified diversity firms we have per code, per community code. That helps us track that so we can see if there are some community codes where we need to do some to work with the certification, with developing opportunities. We also have the ability to see how our certified diversity companies respond to events. We have the ability to track that in our system to understand who is responding and what event, and help us gathering some data that we'll analyze to understand maybe that we have maybe a strong community of DB or certified diversity firms are responding to this type of event. So we need to understand that. And finally, with the ability to categorize and search, a purchase order and prime contracts are signed and issued and awarded to diversity firms. So this is an opportunity to transition to our next part, which is the DBE certification. And I'm going to provide the baton to Matthew.
Thank you, Julian. Hello, everybody. Yes, thank you. Again, my name is Matthew Cullen, and I'm a compliance officer with the Office of Supplier Diversity, here to talk about the State and Local Disadvantaged Enterprise Program certification. The SLDBE program is a race and gender neutral program that does not presume social and economic disadvantage. Each applicant carries the burden of proof regarding their eligibility in establishing their social and economic disadvantage. A business may qualify for the SLDBE program if it is determined that the firm's ability to compete in the business world has been restricted due to industry practices, limited access to capital, and or restricted credit opportunities that are beyond that firm's control. Part of the eligibility and qualifying for the program, the firm must be at least 51% owned by socially and economically disadvantaged person or persons. The firm, including its affiliates, must be a small business as defined by the SBA size standards within its industry, and must not have annual gross receipts over 23.98 million over the past 3 fiscal years. The firm must be an independent business and must not be tied to another firm in such a way as to compromise its independence and control. And the disadvantaged owner or owners seeking certification must possess the power to direct or cause the direction of the management and policy of the firm. The disadvantaged owners must have an overall understanding of a managerial technical competence and experience directly related to the type of business in which the firm is engaged. Part of the, so the SLDB certification is an online process, and the City of New Orleans Business Diversity Management System, also known as B2G Now, or simply our DDE system, is designed to empower vendors to manage their own vendor record, including DDE certification, and maintain accurate contact information and submit their contract payment details when they're on a contract online. So it is a fully electronic SLDB certification, and we have a simplified recertification application. And the tracking of vendor certification applications from submission to completion is done within the DDE system on B2G Now. When the application is properly completed and all supporting documents have been submitted after an on-site visit is performed, the processing time is generally completed within 15 days. But here's the bit of the process overview. So once you've submitted the DDE application online, our certification team will confirm receipt of the application and notify the applicant of any missing documentation, as well as to reach out to schedule a date for a site visit. This is usually done within a week of submitting the application. Once a site visit is conducted and any missing materials are needed, those OSD will be sure to request those, so that way we have a complete application. So once OSD certification team has a complete application, they will do a thorough review of the application and make a recommendation of approval or denial. The certification coordinator will send out your email, if approved, of your confirmation, and within 1 year, you'll need to submit your certification renewal. However, if you are denied, there is an appeals process, and the applicant will be notified by email with the explanation of the denial and the appeals process. You'll have 10 days to request an appeal. You'll be notified when that appeal is scheduled, and you'll go forward with the appeals hearing. Next, please. This is just to show you where the online application is. You can get to it from NOLA.gov and going to Supply Diversity, but the direct link is neworleans.ddesystem.com. As you can see, that's where you can select apply or /renew certification. You can also simply log in if you already have a vendor ID with B2G Now, as many other agencies also use this diversity management system. This is a preview of the application. Once you've started it, there are various sections with various questions pertaining to you and your business. And be sure to fill those in and answer all questions that are marked in red, as those are required. And then that brings us to our documents list, which I'll go over on the next slide. This is a brief list of the documents that are requested for the SLDB certification application. These include, but aren't limited to, the notarized affidavit that you'll need to submit, disadvantaged owner's narrative, as it is upon the owners to explain instances of social and economic disadvantage, spouse's profile form for married individuals, current occupational license, bank account signature sheets, balance sheets and income statements, business and personal tax returns, a personal net worth statement, photo ID and documentation of U.S. citizenship or residency, as you must be a U.S. citizen or resident to qualify. resumes for each owner as well as the management personnel, business formation and ownership documents. So that may vary depending on whether or not you're an LLC or a corporation or a sole proprietorship. And of course, any specialty trade license or certificates that are related to the type of business in which you're engaged. Again, this is not a complete list, but a complete list of documents will be within the application once you've started it. So when you are certified, the SLDB certification is utilized by several New Orleans area agencies to count towards their various equity, diversity, or small business goals. Of course, the City of New Orleans and all its associated boards and commissions utilize this for contracts. Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans, the New Orleans Aviation Board, Harrah's New Orleans as well, Orleans Public School Board, the New Orleans Ernest N. Morial Convention Center, the Port of New Orleans and Public Belt are a few agencies that I named that use and accept the SLDB certification towards some of their contract goals. Additionally, subcontracting opportunities and more information about our partnering opportunities can be found on our DBE opportunities page on NOLA.gov. That's where prime contractors can list when they are seeking DBE subcontractors. And then again, that's where I have a list to link to other agencies' procurement web pages. Our SLDB certification team includes Sonia Oliva, the certification coordinator, Alexis Walker, our certification analyst, and Veronica Christmas, a certification officer with the Sewage and Water Board. She also is part of our certification team. Thank you.
Matthew, thank you very much. Appreciate it for your presentation on DB certification. In conclusion, I just finish in, let's see. Conclusion, I would say that I hope that we prepared you to search and monitor opportunities offered by the city, that we prepare you to register in the Supplier portal, and that we prepare you to apply for DB certification if you haven't done so. Next week, do not forget to sign up for sessions 2 and 3. On Tuesday, May 25th, we'll discuss how to participate in bidding opportunities, and we'll present the DBE requirements. On Thursday, May 27th, we'll conclude our business session with a discussion on the payment process and the DBE monitoring. As Ms. Margaret mentioned at the beginning, both events are virtual and starts at 1:30. And now open the floor for questions and answers.
To everyone, at this time, you can unmute yourself. If you have any questions, please present those to Julian at this time.
I was about to answer. I see that there's a question in the chat. Is brass registration a renewable process every year or one-time process? It's a one-time process. Once you are registered, your supplier account it remains active unless you decide to turn it off. And when I say turn it off, it's basically contacting our office. Let us know that you do not wish to to maintain your account, and we have the ability to inactivate, to delete, depending on whether your account was active or not, whether there were purchase order, contract, invoice payments. But it is a one-time process.
And Julian, did I understand you to say that this presentation will be available on the city's website?
That is our goal, to have it on the website. Can't exactly tell you when, but that's the goal, is to have it available.
Okay, thank you.
And also, Julian, is it okay for those that attended today's session if I share with them the PDF of your presentation?
Absolutely not, Margaret. Of course, yes, you can.
All right, I just wanted to make sure. Any other questions?
Yes. Are there any common reasons why a DBE certification can be denied?
Yes, reasons for denial are often either that the firm is above the economic size standards or the individual is above economic size standards, or there may be evidence of interlocking management with another company that seems to show that there is compromise of independence. The primary ones are sort of what was highlighted under qualifications and eligibility, which is, again, the size standards and independence and control of the firm.
Well,
Okay.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Julian.
No, I was about to say, like, we're waiting for potentially another question. Just want to add to this presentation that when you go to the supply portal, the landing page, you will locate some information that we talked about, such as the process on how to register as a supplier. We have a tutorial there. We have also a tutorial on how to update your bank information. If you already register in the portal and you have not, at the time of the registration, enter bank information, we have a tutorial that you can use to update this. The reason why you would want to do this is because you will encourage you, but sometimes maybe require you, but encourage you to do that to be able to get a ACH payment instead of a check being mailed by the Bureau of Accounting. So when you registered, if you did not included your bank information, you have the ability to do so using that tutorial, which could help you enroll in the ACH program that we have, that we are pushing suppliers to use, so that we have less paper to use for checks, and we also promote a faster payment release by going to your account instead of a check in the mail.
Any other questions?
Hey, Margaret. This is Tanika West speaking again.
Mhm.
Julian, would you like me to share the screen with the landing page with our tutorials, or that is just self-explanatory, just going to our brass purchasing website?
Go ahead, Tanika. That's a great idea. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Great idea. I'm going to stop sharing. Go ahead.
Okay. So as you were mentioning, Julian, these are the guides that we have prepared as a team as helpful links to how to assist and support the business community with better navigation. And again, as you mentioned, please reach out to us, procurement.brass@nola.gov, if any of the information doesn't stand out to any person's reading this information. But the guide on how to update banking information, of course, once the link is selected, the PDF does populate for anyone to download and save, of course, on their devices. So that is a landing page useful to our business community. So everyone please share, and I hope the other businesses share within their pods as well.
Thank you, Tanika.
Okay, no problem. I'll stop sharing now.
I'm going to share again the last page of our presentation, which is that give you the ability to communicate with us after this presentation, whether right after it or later on. The email address procurement.brass@nodat.gov is the email address that you should use to send us your questions and comments. We welcome them and we need them to understand how we can help do business better with you and help you doing better business with us. If you do use that email address and it's in connection to our presentation, please make sure to use the following subject line: business information session -- introduction to city business, question, comment, so we can connect the dots between your email and that presentation. But this is not the last opportunity to communicate. Please use this. Welcome, again, questions and comments to help us improve our procurement process and interaction with our supplier business community.
If there are no more questions, I want to thank Julian, I want to thank Matthew and Tanika all for being here today and giving us this informative presentation. And to all of those that were able to attend, at this time, we'll conclude this session, and I hope to see everyone on Tuesday.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
everybody.
Margaret. All right,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.